We're back here on Open. Well, the White House is trying to combat yesterday's heavy action that took Manafort trial. The Manafort trial ended up with the conviction. Manafort on 8 counts. He also faces 10 others that ended up in a mistrial. At the same time, also, you've got the president's attorney, Cohen, pleading guilty to tax evasion as well as fraud. And that brings a lot of questions right now. And so we're going to bring our political analyst, Lee Bynes, in. Lee?
Good to be back.
Excuse me. Yes, the president needs to take a break himself, given the fact of all that's going on here. Let's break this down here. The Manafort trial first. Let's go. Okay.
Manafort, he went down as pretty much like everybody expected. The charges against him were fairly clear and very, very difficult to defend against. As you remember last week, his defense team did not put on a defense. They pretty much just left it in the hands of the juries and prayed for the best. The best was that they got a hung jury on 10 of the counts, but he was convicted on 8. It didn't really matter whether or not it was 8 or the full 18. All it took was 1 to put him behind bars for a substantial amount of time, because I understand that just 1 of those charges he could be held accountable for 30 years. If the full plethora of charges against him had actually went through and he was convicted of them all, he was facing as much as 240 years in jail. The man is 69 years old. One of the reasons why, this is pure speculation now, but one of the reasons why I think that he decided to go and fight the charges as opposed to pleading out like Michael Cohen did is because I suspect that he's hoping for a pardon, and that's one of the reasons why he's keeping his mouth shut. Now, this man is not out of legal jeopardy whatsoever, not just because of the 10 charges that he didn't get convicted on, but he's got to come to D.C. and face additional charges on failing to let the government know that he was operating as a foreign agent for Ukraine, and as well as another $30-some-odd million that he was trying to get under the table without paying his due taxes on it. So he's going to be facing some serious time in the future, unless, of course, Donald Trump is crazy enough to pardon the man. But these are charges. These are outright criminal charges. And when you start to add this up, we'll roll right into Michael Cohen, because he didn't even bother to fight his charges. He just went in, raised his hand, took the oath, and just admitted that I'm guilty of these things. Now, the things that he was found that he pleaded to was tax and bank fraud. But he also pleaded guilty to the big one, because this is huge, the campaign finance violations. By doing that, when he actually pled guilty to that, he opened up the president to the fact that, yes, the president was aware of the money that was being spent to pay for Karen, I forget her last name, the Playboy model, and Stormy Daniels.
But let's go here, because the reference that he made was he assisted the candidate.
Right.
And so in assisting the candidate is then that he directly implicates the president. Where do you go from here, given the fact now that the president has been implicated? We know that Michael Cohen is his attorney, and once your attorney goes, what goes from here?
Well, what goes from here is his attorney, Lenny Davis, was on last night, as a matter of fact, and he indicated that Michael Cohen, even though he's already accepted his fate, he still has information to share, and he's more than willing to share it. Cohen was the president's fixer. Cohen was the one who said that I'd take a bullet for the president, but the president was not as loyal to Cohen. When Cohen felt that he was going down, nobody was even offering him any signs that he would be pardoned. He just kind of like went on his own. So he's the last thing you want to get on your bad side is a rat, and an angry rat, and he's going to rat. And so in the next couple of months, after some of the dust clears, they're going to come back to Cohen and see what else that he can provide to the government to get just a little bit closer to the president. The reason why this is a pretty tough issue is because he can, we know that Manafort was in the room with the Russians at the time when they had that meeting, along with Don Jr. and Jared Kushner. The 3 of them were in that room. Manafort has information, but not only that, Cohen can actually establish the fact that Donald Trump himself knew what was going on.
The question is,
and there's a collusion. There's a collusion, and then of course everything else he's been doing in the meantime will support a very, very strong case
the main question that many Americans are asking is, given the fact you've got Manafort, you've got Cohen, and now you've got also Omarosa, which we haven't even, spoke about. You've got these three, people who are tied to your administration, and all of this going on right now. How is any government going on, or any governing going on?
It can't be, because here's the deal. Before we could even finish reporting on the fact that Michael Cohen had pleaded out, and before we could finish reporting that Paul Manafort was convicted, we have Duncan Hunter out in California. He's been indicted, him and his wife. They got busted by the government for taking campaign funds to kind of live a lifestyle that they couldn't afford. So they're under investigation. Well, not under investigation, they've been invited. Now, they've been indicted. But that's also on the heels of last week we talked about yesterday with Chris Collins going down when he was busted and indicted for, what is his charge? I forget now. But at any rate, we have the first person that endorsed Donald Trump, which is I can't think of this guy's name for the life of me, but the second person, which is the Duncan Hunter from California.
Right.
Both of them are now facing charges by the federal government. So what does all of this say going forward? There cannot possibly be any governance going on in the White House, because they are on defense 100%. And we're looking at a den of thieves. We're looking at a criminal element. We're looking at a criminal enterprise operating right out of the White House. And for the president to go out in the public over the last couple of days and say, oh, Manafort is a good guy. And but he's not. He's a convicted felon. He's a liar, a cheat, and thief, and he's been, well, busted for it. So the president is pretty much stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there's not going to be much legislation moving forward on anything else other than him finding a way to keep himself
Play this out for me for November. I mean, we've got midterm elections that are right around the corner, right? And you've got the GOP is taking a definite hit with all of this. But everybody asks the question, how does this translate at the polls? Will we see a strong, resurgence of voters coming out in midterm elections? I mean, we've seen some tight races, but the question is whether or not, because the president has his base and they're not going anywhere. It doesn't matter what he does. How much is that going to still play into November? And is this still going to be something that we're going to be talking about after November that had no effect?
If the heat stays this hot for the next 80 some odd days, that blue wave is going to be a tsunami, simply because of the fact that the only thing that the Democrats have to do right now is focus on what concerns their constituents, and that is health care, the economy, jobs. I know that the president is talking about the economy is hot right now and jobs are, around for everybody, but those jobs aren't paying very much money. Healthcare is still a major issue, and even if the Democrats just focus on those two issues, along with all of the other items that will depress his base from coming out. A lot of people who are being called on the phone and asking their opinion on things are still hanging with the president, but a lot of those folks, I don't see them being as motivated to come to the polls as the Democrats are. The Democrats are empowered now, and I think that's one of the reasons why Steve Bannon is working the refs on the sidelines, trying to say that we need to save the president, because if we don't save the president, any gains that he made over this short period of time will be lost. Because even though the Democrats are trying to back away from talking about things like impeachment, they know that's what's coming. If they take the House.
The question is, why haven't we heard that word from the Democrats? Is this political strategy, or, I mean, we've heard it before.
Well,
they've definitely
because that would
stance.
add fuel to those who are still supporting the president. They'll come out. They'll want to get people to come out and vote on that issue. Look, if we don't save the president, however abhorrent he is and the way he's been running things, the best thing we can do is to save the House and the Senate to make sure that we can keep him protected at least until 2020. And when that happens, he'll be challenged from his own side, as well as I don't know how many people are going to come out against him on the Democratic side. But I can say with a great deal of confidence that Donald Trump won't be around after 2020.
You pretty much.
I would pretty much bet.
We had this before, a few years ago, he wasn't going to be president.
Well, I wasn't a part of that argument simply because of the fact that I wasn't a part of that argument because I didn't participate in that argument.
Right.
But Yeah, he is the president. I think it's a good thing because it was a learning lesson. I think that the United States, most of the citizens have realized that he is not good for the country. Most of the intelligence community is against him right now based upon him getting rid of Brennan's security clearance. We know the reason why he did that. That was to cover up for the issue regarding Omarosa. Right. That he pulled out of his back pocket to get rid of that story. Then Manafort gets convicted, and his attorney pleads out.
We've got a couple seconds left, but
Sure.
I want to ask about these latest findings. How does this affect international relations?
Well, you know what? I think the folks in China, the EU, Canada, Mexico, they pretty much can see the writing on the wall as well with all of these convictions and the amount of pressure that the president is under. They're playing a waiting game. It's the same thing with North Korea. It's the same thing with Russia and the UK and Germany. They've all come to the conclusion that a lot of this stuff is going to be over very, very soon. Like I said, he's got about 18 more months to play these games, and then it'll be over. And one of the reasons why he's going to stick around for a while is because, let's face it, we know now that the Justice Department rules state that he cannot be indicted as a sitting president. So they'll have to wait until he's out of office and then approach him from that standpoint. And that's the only protection that he has right now. That's it. He's done.
All right. Lee Mons, thanks so much. That's why we bring
Good
you
to be here
next week. All right. Well, we want you to stay with us. We got more show. We'll be right back right after this.